I now call on the Russian Federation.
Thank you, President. We welcome the initiative of France to convene today's meeting. We're grateful to the Vice Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Eliasson, for the assessments he provided. Critical information was shared with us by Mr. Guterres. We particularly listened to the ministers representing Syria's neighboring countries. The trends in terms of development of the humanitarian situation in Syria cannot but spark deep concern. There's an increase in the civilian victims, an increase in the number of refugees, more than 200,000. The number of IDPs has surpassed 1 million. 2.5 million Syrians need assistance. The situation is even more dramatic in that in the country there is more than 1.5 million refugees from outside. The consequences of the chaos is being experienced by the majority of the population in Syria. Responsibilities for the plight of simple citizens is borne by both belligerent sides. We call upon the Syrian leadership and leaders of the opposition, including the armed opposition, to prevent further deterioration of the humanitarian situation. We note the efforts of the government of Syria aimed at providing assistance to those who suffer. It is important that a plan was agreed upon for a humanitarian response. In accordance with it, the international humanitarian agencies and non-government organizations working with local authorities and the Syrian Society of the Red Crescent are carrying out humanitarian activities in Syria. The bulk of humanitarian assistance today is going to the refugee camps in Syria's neighboring countries. They do truly need this assistance. However, the population living in the territory of Syria clearly lacks humanitarian assistance being sent through varying channels. There is an urgent need to earmark additional resources to assist all affected Syrians, including IDPs. Russia is providing Syria active humanitarian assistance both bilaterally and via international organizations. Targeted donor contributions reaching millions of dollars were provided by us to the International Committee of the Red Cross, the World Food Program, and the Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs. The delivery of direct humanitarian assistance has also been carried out. We welcome the activities of the international entities, above all the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, in providing international humanitarian assistance to the suffering Syrians. Humanitarian organizations and agencies must have access to those sites where there are Syrian refugees in neighboring countries to properly assess the situation and provide relevant assistance. We underscore the importance of implementation of the regional plan to assist refugees from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. The humanitarian situation in Syria is negatively impacted by unilateral economic sanctions and restrictions imposed by individual countries and regional associations. We fundamentally oppose such practices. These sanctions imposed in circumvention of the UN Security Council have nothing in common with the actual efforts to assist in settlement of the Syrian crisis. They simply complicate the life of simple citizens and deny them the opportunity to meet their elementary needs and fully enjoy basic human rights. This is not only our conclusion, but it is also the conclusion of the Independent International Commission of Inquiry in Syria. We call upon nations who have imposed anti-Syrian sanctions to immediately lift them. We view the efforts of individual states to use pseudo-humanitarian arguments to justify their financial, material, technical, or logistical support to illegal armed groups as unacceptable. When implementing humanitarian activities, it is critical to continue to fully comply with the principles of neutrality and impartiality. Let us put this directly. Not all of the ideas voiced here are in keeping with this criterion. In general, humanitarian assistance must be carried out strictly within the framework of international law. President, it is quite clear that the primary reason for the plight of the Syrian people is the ongoing hostilities. Therefore, the core challenge at this point in time is the ceasefire. There needs to be an end. We need to have all belligerents stop and put an end to their armed confrontation and to bring the conflict into the political realm. Any other approaches would lead only to a worsening of the crisis, including the humanitarian crisis. To date, the level of violence in Syria is not only not declining, but continues to worsen. We regret that because of the positions of a number of Security Council members, we were not able to extend the mandate of the UN Supervision Mission in Syria, which played a certain deterrence role in this regard. The Office of the Special Representative in Damascus, which is being set up, must quickly begin its active work on the ground, which we hope will help the Syrians to end the vicious cycle of violence. One of the near-term practical jobs of the office, as we see it, is assist in carrying out a careful, impartial inquiry into all circumstances related to the latest tragic events and acts of violence against civilians. The international community cannot remain aloof to the attempts of extremist elements and terrorists to further destabilize the situation in Syria, in particularly repressive acts against ethnic and religious minorities. And we anticipate that today's meeting will make it possible to strengthen the common denominator in our positions in the interest of coordinated leverage on the conflicting parties in order to encourage them to immediately end the bloodshed and make it possible to address the pressing humanitarian problems of the Syrian people. Particularly in that, for this, we have a consensus basis in the form of the relevant Security Council resolutions, Mr. Annan's plan, and the Action Group Geneva Communique. It is, in fact, from this standpoint that Russia is pursuing its persistent effort both with the Syrian government and with the opposition groups. We call upon other responsible members of the international community to do the same. We welcome the appointment of Mr. Brahimi as Special Representative of Syria and will provide him assistance in political settlement in Syria with firm principled support. Thank you, President.
Merci.